Recently, I've been thinking about why everything feels so incredibly flat lately. It's not just that I am tired or that the news is heavy, it feels like the actual texture of the world has been sanded down. If you spend any time online in 2026, you know exactly what I mean. Every app you open and every site you visit feels like it was designed in a sterile hospital waiting room. Everything is wiped down and sanitized and stripped of its personality. I've been working as a senior designer and art director for a long time now. I've seen this happen year by year. We spent so much time trying to make things easy to use that we accidentally made them impossible to love. The problem is that our brains were not built for this level of smoothness. We evolved to process a world that is complicated and messy. When you take that mess away, your mind starts to go numb. This is why you can scroll through a perfectly curated feed for hours and feel more exhausted than when you started. The real reason you're burnt out isn't the workload, it's the lack of visual friction. We've built a digital world that is too smooth for the human brain to grab onto. Your eyes are literally sliding off the screen because there's nothing real there to see. A report released in February 2026 by McGill University found that spending even brief moments in nature triggers changes in the brain that quiet mental clutter in a way that a digital detox alone cannot. The study showed that nature provides a mental reset because it offers a break from the fast-paced and visually dense stimuli we find online. We are starving for the kind of visual nutrition that only comes from things that weren't optimized for a click. I keep coming back to this idea of friction. In my work, I talk about it a lot, but in our daily lives, we usually try to avoid it. We want the fastest way to get things done, but nature is full of friction. If you look at a tree, the bark is not a perfect repeating pattern. There are knots and moss and jagged edges. There's a randomness to it that actually forces your brain to work a little bit to process the image. This is called high frequency visual information, and it is actually good for us. When we look at a modern screen, we are seeing low frequency information. A study published in the Journal of Environmental Psychology in late 2024 found that environments with high visual complexity like a forest actually lower our stress levels and helps us to focus. On the other hand, environments with low complexity, like a standard modern office or a mindless social media interface, actually increases our feelings of stagnation. I feel this the most when I'm at my desk for too long. My world starts to feel like a series of boxes and grids, and for you it could be endless spreadsheets, Word documents, and emails. We're being deprived of the visual variety that keeps our curiosity alive. Nature provides true randomness, and it doesn't care about your attention span. It just exists in all its messy and unpredictable glory. If you want to fix your burnout, you have to realize this is a biological problem. You cannot fix it with a new productivity app. You need to reintroduce friction into your life. You need to look at things that have weight and texture and edges that haven't been smoothed over. You need to remind your eyes how to actually look at the world again. The reason everything feels so identical right now is that the algorithms have finally won. In the early days of the internet, things were a mess. People made weird choices because they didn't know the rules. But in 2026, we have so much data on what people click on that we have narrowed everything down to a few proven templates. It has created this feedback loop of sameness that is draining the life out of everything we see. A 2026 market analysis by Nielsen stated that consumer engagement with traditional digital advertising has dropped by 22% over the last year and a half. The report says that people are suffering from aesthetic blindness. We're so used to seeing the same layouts and the same styles that our brains have learned to just tune them out entirely. This is why creators are trying to be louder and more colorful, which only makes the exhaustion worse. We're living in an era of aesthetic blindness. The internet has become so predictable that your brain doesn't even bother to process the images anymore. If you feel like you're losing your spark, it's because you're breathing in filtered air. You need to find a view that hasn't been optimized for a click-through rate. I see this in my own industry every single day. People are using the same tools to solve the same problems, and the result is a world that feels like it was all made by the same hand. This lack of variety is a form of sensory deprivation. When you spend your whole day in a world with no surprises, you stop looking for them. You become a passive consumer instead of an active observer, and that is the core of the burnout we're all feeling. There's actually a scientific reason why looking at a park feels better than looking at a spreadsheet. It's called fractal geometry. Nature is built on fractals, which are patterns that repeat at different scales. You see it in a snowflake or the way the veins on a leaf look like a river system. Our eyes are specifically designed to scan these patterns because they signal life and safety to our primitive brains. Professor Richard Taylor at the University of Oregon published a paper in 2025 detailing how looking at these natural patterns can reduce stress levels by up to 60%. He found that when the human eye looks at these patterns, the brain enters a state of wakeful relaxation. This is a state that is almost impossible to get to while looking at a digital interface because digital interfaces are built on perfect circles and straight lines. Digital world building is an attempt to put order on a chaotic world. But too much order is oppressive. When every line is perfectly straight, your brain starts to feel trapped. This is why minimalism has started to feel so cold and unwelcoming lately. We've removed the fractals and replaced them with flat planes. We've taken away the very thing that helps our brains regulate stress. If you want to reset your nervous system, you don't need a meditation app, you just need a window. You need to let your eyes wander over the fractals of a tree or a stone. This isn't just relaxing in a vague way, it is a biological reset. You're giving your eyes a specific type of information they were made to handle. The phrase touch grass started as a joke, but in 2026 it is becoming a legitimate way to save your sanity. We're living through a haptic crisis. We spend so much time touching glass and plastic that we have forgotten what real texture feels like. A report from The Guardian in early 2026 highlighted a new trend called friction maxing. It is the intentional act of adding small obstacles or resistance back into your life to improve your focus and your well-being. According to a 2025 report from the Global Wellness Summit, tactile hunger is a growing problem in cities. People are seeking out pottery and gardening and woodworking because they need to ground themselves in a reality that feels solid. When you touch something real like soil or wood, it sends a different signal to your brain than a glass screen does. We've traded the world for a screen and we're wondering why we feel empty. You weren't meant to live in a world of glass and light. You were meant to live in a world of dirt and stone. The burnout you feel is your body telling you that it misses the physical world. As someone who spends my life in front of a monitor, usually 10 to 12 hours a day, I have to remind myself that my work is not the whole human experience. We need more things in our lives that don't have an undo button. Friction maxing isn't about making life hard for no reason. It is about reinserting yourself into the process of living. It is about choosing the long road because the long road is the only one that actually feels real. So what do we actually do about this? We can't all just quit our jobs and move to the woods, although I will admit that's a dream of mine. But we can change our visual and tactile diet. The first step is to reintroduce analog friction into your morning. A study mentioned by Marie Claire UK in March 2026 suggests that small analog habits like writing a card or making coffee from scratch can build internal trust and help your nervous system handle stimulation better. Instead of reaching for your phone the second you wake up, try to touch 3 different natural textures. Touch the wooden edge of a table or a plant or even just a stone you keep on your desk. This sounds small, but it resets your tactile system before you dive into the glass world. For me personally, the first thing I do in the morning is go outside for a short walk, and honestly, it's changed so much for me mentally. Another thing you can do is change your visual environment for at least 3 minutes every hour. The McGill study I mentioned earlier says that as little as 3 minutes in a natural environment can lead to measurable changes in your brain. You should also look into micro-nature habits. This means bringing the randomness back into your workspace. Get a plant that isn't perfect. Buy some art that has visible brushstrokes or uneven edges. Stop trying to make your desk look like a tech ad. The more mess and friction you have in your immediate physical space, the less the sterile digital world will be able to drain you. Finally, you need to practice intentional observation. Once a day, find the thing in the real world that is truly random. Look at the way a shadow falls on a wall or the way a leaf is decaying. Don't take a photo of it, just look at it. You're training your brain to see high-frequency information again. You're reminding yourself that the world is much bigger and much more interesting than the 5 algorithms that are currently trying to run your life. We talk a lot about what we eat, but we almost never talk about what we let into our eyes. In 2026, most of us are on a visual diet of junk food. We're consuming high-calorie and low-nutrient content that makes us feel full but leaves us malnourished. If you want to fix your burnout, you have to be more intentional about your visual nutrition. A 2025 study from the University of London found that people who spent 20 minutes a day looking at complex natural imagery showed a 15% improvement in cognitive flexibility. This means you can actually train your brain to be more creative and more resilient just by changing what you look at. It is about quality over quantity. I've started treating my time outside as a mandatory part of my life. It isn't a break from being productive, it is the thing that makes it possible to be human. If I don't feed my brain with the textures and the randomness of the real world, I eventually become part of the problem. You have to protect your visual integrity by finding inspiration in places that do not have a scroll bar. This means putting the phone down even when you are bored. Boredom is actually a very creative state, but only if you don't fill it with digital noise. If you allow yourself to be bored in a park, your brain will eventually start to find patterns on its own. It will start to make connections that it never would have made while looking at a feed. This is where real ideas come from, and for me, I've had some of my best creative campaign ideas whilst out on a walk. If I had not gone out for a stroll, I'd have missed ideas that ended up reaching millions of people around the world. You should really try it, it's so simple. The path forward is not about a digital detox, it is about digital boundaries. It is about realizing that the internet is a tool, but nature is a home. If you want a real tangible conclusion, it's this. Commit to 1 hour of analog friction every single day. That means 1 hour where you're not in front of a screen of any kind. No TV, no phone, no computer. You're cooking or gardening or walking or building something with your hands. The 2026 Pinterest Predicts report highlighted that people are moving toward a paleontologist aesthetic and adventure-ready gear because we are all looking for a way to survive the digital desert. We're looking for comfort in everyday rituals, so start a ritual. Pick a physical hobby that has no digital component. Whether it is pottery or hiking or just cleaning your house by hand, find something where the effort increases the meaning. The most important choice you will make today is not on a screen. It is a choice to step away from it. The world is full of color and texture and randomness that no algorithm will ever be able to touch. The cure for your burnout isn't a better workflow, it is the world that has been waiting for you outside your window. The burnout you feel is a sign of health. It is your brain rejecting an environment that is not natural. So take the time to reset. Go find a park, look at the bark on a tree, feel the dirt on your hands. Remind yourself what reality actually feels like. Once you do that, you will find that the burnout starts to lift and the world starts to look a lot more interesting again. Go touch grass. Your brain is waiting for you to come back to it. Thanks for sticking around to the end of this video. If you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on burnout, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. I also want to hear your thoughts. What are some things you've done that have helped you with fighting off burnout? I'd love to hear it, and you never know, it may help someone else. And as always, if you have a topic you'd like to hear my thoughts on, let me know down in the comments as well, and I'll do my best to make it happen. And with that, I'm going to go for a walk and suggest you do too. I'll see you in the next video.